Tier 5 Tech Tree Soviet Heavy Cruiser, Gorky. We're going to be taking our first look at the Gorky today, and we're going to start off with this clip. Hello, I am Xarkun, and this is World of Warships Legends. Take a look at this AP salvo against the enemy Gorky. He's giving a bit too much broadside to us, and you can see that the armor piercing on this ship is able to punch right through his side armor and citadel him for a lot of damage. In the span of only 2 salvos, he has been reduced to no health, and 1 shell from one of these guns is going to be enough to take him out. But take note, just as we shoot that last shot, a battleship hits us right in the stern, overmatches it, and strikes the citadel. So the very first thing to know about the Gorky is that it really does not have any armor, and its armor piercing is quite effective. Now we're going to move on to the main event of this video, which is a full game that I played in the Gorky. Just wanted to start off with this clip so that you'd have an idea about what I am going to say. Now, this is not going to be a review of the Gorky. This is more of a first impressions sort of video, and basically an idea on how I think this entire line of Russian heavy cruisers is going to play. I do have my commander build, by the way. I put it up on www.wowsbuilds.com. There's a link to it in the description if you want to take a look at my commander build. I'm using Makarov rather than Kuznetsov, and that is in line with my build philosophy on light cruisers versus heavy cruisers. Light cruisers, I think, tend to fare better with the more aggressive cruiser commanders like Norm Scott or Lemonnier or Kuznetsov. And then heavy cruisers, I think, tend to fare better, for the most part, with the more defensive-minded cruisers like Mikawa or Tennant, or in this case, Makarov. Part of that is because the more defensive-minded cruisers always have the ingenious skill, which shows you the number of enemy ships targeting you when you're spotted, and that's, of course, a nice piece of information to have. And also the ingenious skill buffs the turret traverse speed on these heavy cruisers, which tend to have pretty slow turning turrets. Plus, you've got other skills on those commanders that increase the speed or decrease the rudder shift, basically survivability aspects, and that's what we're focusing on here. Speaking of survivability, we've already seen that the Gorky does not have very good armor, but it does have very good AP. Another case in point, the Kotovsky, which I believe is the Tier 4 cruiser in this line. Haven't actually played it. Since I got the Tier 5, I figured I'd start grinding that. Good results against him with the armor piercing. And then against this enemy Congo, fairly decent results. Now, none of these salvos against these enemy battleships with the armor piercing are going to look too particularly insane as this game goes on, but you'll notice that when I shoot this armor piercing, I'm getting pretty consistent damage. And in fact, that first salvo against the Congo, that was for like 2k or whatever, that's honestly a little bit of a low roll on the damage dice there. You see we get 4k on that Congo the second time and 6k there that third time. So the damage is pretty consistent with the armor piercing on this cruiser. Excellent against broadside cruisers. Very effective over time against broadside battleships. There, another 4k salvo. You can see that with a reload of, 10, 11 seconds, this stuff would start to add up. The problem with this cruiser, of course, is that it has no armor, as you've seen. So the idea for playing this, and I think you're going to see me do this throughout the entirety of the game, you're going to need to be taking a look at the map constantly. You're going to have to look for spotted enemies and the last known positions of dangerous enemies like enemy battleships. You never want to give broadside in the Gorky. If you do, you can be punished very, very harshly, just as something like the Pensacola can be punished. So you want to pick your places on the map quite carefully, and in fact, I'm not really paying enough attention to the map right now. Notice that directly to my left, there is an enemy battleship There he is. I've just noticed him now, the Texas. We don't want to point our broadside at the Texas, so we're going to make a turn here. We're going to temporarily expose broadside to the Pensacola, which is not great, but we want to keep our stern pointed at that Texas and angle against the Pensacola. The reason we want to do this is because if you are in a cruiser and you're worried about battleships having access to you, first thing you don't want to do is give them broadside. The second thing you want to do is make yourself as unattractive a target as possible. If I've got my stern pointed at the enemy battleship, I'm angled away from him, ready to kite away should he open fire on me, well, then all of a sudden I'm a much less attractive target. He might hit me, he might penetrate the armor, but it's unlikely that he's going to get a citadel, although that can absolutely happen, as you saw in the very beginning when I think a Bayern took a shot at me and hit me right through the stern of the ship and, you know, did some wicked damage to me. Nevertheless, you point your stern of your cruiser at enemy battleships, angle away from them, get ready to kite away should the need arise, and you'll find that a lot of times battleship captains are not going to take those shots. They're out there looking for broadsides. They want to use their guns, which often have a long reload time, to do the most damage possible, and in order to do that, they're going to want to shoot broadside. So if they've got a heavy cruiser angled away from them, not presenting a favorable angle, number one, it's harder to hit ships that are angled away from you and sailing away. And number two, there's probably some of your teammates out there that those battleships can capitalize on. Other than that, I'd say these ships, this ship in particular, the Gorky, extremely effective at handling tier 5 heavy cruisers. Very good. You can see the number we've done to this Pensacola. In fact, we're about to take him out there, but we do want to turn our bow to the left here. You can see we're taking some incoming fire from another cruiser out there, and there's still that Texas out there, so we do want to be careful. The other cruiser is the Devonshire. We can see we've got two people aiming at us, and there are some shots from one of the battleships. Luckily, it's AP. Take a look at what our AP does against the Devonshire, though. 20,000 damage for citadels. The AP is almost certainly going to be the bread and butter of this Russian heavy cruiser line. I think in this ship in particular, and the rest of the ships that follow this, I think you're going to want to be shooting the AP at everything. Cruisers, battleships, the only thing you probably don't want to shoot it at is destroyers. And in fact, I don't know that you're really going to see me shooting this AP, or rather this HE, too much at all in this game. We might come against the enemy destroyer, and we might switch to HE at that point. Otherwise, we might find ourselves shooting at a very angled Queen Elizabeth, and then we might switch to the HE just to get some damage and some fires. Otherwise, though, this AP, as you can see, very consistent damage to battleships, very dangerous high alpha strike to cruisers. So this is definitely going to be an AP focused line, I do believe, and the AP is going to be quite effective. And as we go up the line, I think the armor is going to get more effective as well. But you can see there with that salvo on the Queen Elizabeth, the HE is fine. It's certainly going to start fires for you. Certainly going to be capable of penetrating a lot of armor as well. So I like the way that this ship is. I think it is a good indication of what to come, and I am quite excited to be able to finally play the Talon. Hopefully I'll get it in a crate before this update is over and before it comes out of early access, and then I'll be very interested to play the Riga. As for this game, we've racked up 93,000 damage and the high caliber medal, been playing defensively throughout, and, you know, this doesn't look like a really high damage game. I mean, it's perhaps not a super high damage game for tier 5, but we did get the high caliber medal, and I think we're going to finish with the Confederate. And mostly we have just been playing pretty defensively, trying to keep an eye on our minimap as much as possible, making sure that we're not giving broadside to anybody. and then taking advantage of broadside shots on cruisers and battleships. And as you can see, this cruiser is quite effective at doing that. There's only a Königsberg and a single enemy destroyer left. Neither of them are going to pose too much of a threat to my 6 remaining teammates, I'm sure. The only question is, can we get around to this Königsberg and finish him off? Notice that the speed on this ship is quite good. We're going over 36 knots, which is honestly excellent for a Tier 5 cruiser. That is due in part to the rather good base speed of this cruiser, and also Makarov with his Velocis skill that increases cruiser speed. Another reason you might want to use him. There's that Königsberg, flat broadside, and we're going to be able to easily pick up this kill and end the game. So, first impressions on the Gorky, I like it. I think it's pretty effective, and the AP is pretty good. Let me know if you've gotten these cruisers out of crates for this update, and if you've played them. Let me know what you think about their performance. Give the video a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.